He more of a piss artist, and he was always pissed, and he would miss planes, and we'd have to wait at the airport. So I just had the bouncer go and wait for him to come off the next plane, and one day the bouncer, this bodyguard, was so annoyed of waiting for him. He's like lifting up my shirt, and he's like, "Here, get a bottle of vodka or something." And so he opens the luggage rack and throws him in, and this woman sees the incident. She goes, "Oh, leave this poor boy alone." The guy goes, "Fuck off, he's mine, my midget," and he goes, "Yeah."
Now, it was a bit of a bleak time after that. Your lead guitarist, Randy Rhoads, was killed in a plane crash. And in 1984, you checked into the Betty Ford Clinic. What did you think of rehab?
First, my father died. I got fired from Sabbath. My first wife threw me out. I'd gone back on my feet again. My guitar player dies. And it was like it was real rock and roll. It was like 1 minute up, 1 minute down. And I'm thinking, the pressure that was going on was just incredible. So my wife said, "I've heard about this place." I said, "Well, what is it? What are you talking about? You're always hearing about places. What are you on about?" She says, "Well, there's this new clinic where they teach you to drink properly." What? I'm start thinking, I'm going, maybe I'm drinking it too quickly, or I should wait 5 minutes between vodkas or mix one. So she said, "I've never heard of rehab before." And so she goes, "Yeah, it's called the Betty Ford Clinic." I said, "Well, what does that mean?" She says, it's like a resort place in the Palm Springs. She's going 6 weeks. And I go, "That sounded okay." So I walk into the Betty Ford Clinic, and I walk in, and they're all standing there. "Welcome, come in." Mrs. Ford comes up to me. She goes, "You're welcome, you come in." Because that's what that's the only thing they ever say to you, "You're welcome," or "Have a nice day," or something, you know. So I go, "Where's the bar?" And she looked at me as if I'm mad. And she goes, "Oh, you're certainly in the right place, my son."
You eventually went on the wagon, although there were a few more sort of stumbles off it on the way. I believe you also had a misunderstanding with a takeaway pizza as well.
It's a typical me story. I mean, I don't plan these things. You know? I mean, I was staying at a guy's house, and he had no air conditioner, and then I was sleeping on his couch. And it was so hot that I was just took all my clothes off and just lying on his couch, and he was living upstairs with his girlfriend. And he comes in. For once, I wasn't drunk. So he comes in with his pizza, this guy, and he's legless. And he's eating his pizza, and he goes into the kitchen. Now, he's naked as well. And so he starts to choke on his pizza, and I go, "Oh my God." So I get up behind him, and I try to give him a hand. Maneuver like this, and we're both naked, and his wife comes in, and she goes, he's going, "Oh, I'm terribly sorry." I go, it's not what you think." You know, so, I mean, then of course I got dressed, and I buggered off, because I didn't want to...
You buggered off, did you?
No, I called a cab.
But now, in the 1990s, you have finally cleared up your act. I have here a rider. This is the rider you now have on your tour. Let's have a look at some of the things you ask. This is what... Small fresh fruit tray, Cars assorted water biscuits, 1 litre bottle of Evian water, 6 Diet Pepsis, 1 box throat coat tea, tea kettle or pot for boiling, 1 bagel toaster. It's not exactly rock and roll, that, is it? Sounds more like the end of the generation gap. You've also performed some duets with some pretty wholesome family entertainers, Miss Piggy, Frank Bruno, Lita Ford, although I'm not sure this Alanis Morissette video is 100% genuine.
Black fly in your Chardonnay, it's a death row pardon, 2 minutes too late, and isn't it ironic? It's like rain.
you have calmed down an awful lot, whereas in the old days you'd get drunk, probably in a dress. These days you like gardening, don't you, at night, with dirty great floodlights in the garden. Didn't you get in trouble for that?
We live in Buckinghamshire, you know, and it's like, it's really dark, you know, so, I don't like people. We got this walking trail, and people tend to wander across the field. So it's not so much the gardening, but I like to see who's coming around. You know, if someone's coming to burgle the house or whatever. And we put these lights up, and they all started to complain. But mind you, I think aeroplanes were beginning to get mixed up from our house. And
now we were wondering what effect huge stadium lights would have on bats. So we spoke to a bat expert, naturalist Chris Packham.
Moths are famous for flying towards lights, and if you've got extremely bright lights, you can pull animals in from miles and miles away. Of course, if you get a huge amount of insects, flies and moths and things buzzing around a bright light, it's a bat magnet, it's a bat takeaway, and bats will come in and scoop up all of these things. And I've seen this happening, not in this country I have to say, but in Europe and in Africa. So here we've got a case of a man who has a terrible reputation when it comes to bats, but perhaps he's reformed and now he's providing them with food in his own garden.
That's not reformed, is it? That's just hungry, isn't it?
Who is he?
Well, Ozzy, you lived with him for 3 months.
And I stepped on his cows.
That's right. Also, Chris Packham had another story to tell us.
Apparently Motley Crue were in awe of Ozzy. You know, he was one of their prime mentors in their youth, and of course they grew to establish a reputation of their own, and they always wanted to meet him. And allegedly they were sat round a hotel pool one day, and word came in that Ozzy had actually come into the hotel, and so they sort of spruced themselves up. You know, here was an audience with the king, as it were, and he walked into the edge of the pool, and he glanced down onto the ground, and there was a line of ants which had laced themselves along a spilt sugary drink. And without saying a word to Motley Crue, Ozzy knelt down and snorted the whole line of ants and then just walked out. What can I say? It's an act of genius, isn't it?
Have I done all this in one life?
He's Tom Vance again.
What is the most remarkable thing about him is that he survived. I thought he was going to die countless times, and I seriously did. In fact, at the BBC, I don't know if they've still got it, there's a half-prepared obituary that I put together for Ozzy Osbourne, and I think I did that in about 1978.
Apparently they have finished it, and in the end you choke on your own ants. Now, if there was an obituary and you could change it, what would you change in your life?
Not a damn thing.
No?
Not one damn thing, because it's been one hell of a life.
Evidently. You've been in the music business for over 30 years. Black Sabbath have sold 10 million singles, 20 million albums. You yourself, as a solo artist, have shifted over 110 million albums worldwide. It's obviously been a bumpy ride, but it's all worked out brilliantly in the end. You'll have to take our word for that, obviously. You won't remember much of it. And we're going to play out with a recent performance of Paranoid by Ozzy and Black Sabbath. Sadly, these days, without the hand-cranked black and white psychedelic wheels. Ladies and gentlemen, Ozzy Osbourne.
Steve Harley.